I'm going to move this forward to the next question, which is, how does one demonstrate value, ROI, in a BC program? So to really build on that last question, I think we'll go with the same way as we did before. So if I can go to Regina first, that would be wonderful. Did we lose Regina?
Sorry, I'm here. If an outage occurs, that's pretty easy when you actually talk about demonstrating value. But in lieu of no outage, how do you demonstrate that your program has any value? And I think if we look at our 34 years of practice, on an average, most of our clients around the world have had very few interruptions. So we can't sit on those laurels. I think it's important for us when we're really talking about demonstration of value to stop for a moment, and I would ask everybody that's on this call that's listening to us to really peel back your program and begin to really look at it how your executives might look at it. For example, we have had many of our clients in the last 5 years in particular, especially since the financial meltdown of 2008 and 9, to look at us deeply in the eyes and say, okay, how could you do recovery differently? I know this is how it's been done historically. I understand that these standards require certain types of practices for a BIA or a business continuity plan. But look, how could you do this differently? So I would ask everybody on this call, when you're talking about return on investment and value in a program, thinking about if you had to do it differently and your boss said to you, how would you do it differently? What would you say? How could you deliver similar results but develop it differently? How could you actually go about a BIA in the non-traditional way, which we've increasingly been doing in our client population? And so what's that value add-on of business continuity? Is it only for a disaster, or is there value in every day? And I would really hope when you're looking at your program and asking the question, how can I do recovery differently, that you're asking yourself, what value do I provide to the business every single day? Not just when the bad thing happens, but every single day. And I think that will really help us as we continue to peel this back of talking about return on investment.
Hey, Regina, great statement. Matt, could I have your thoughts, please?
Yeah, absolutely. And in my opinion, Regina really hit the nail right on the head, is how do we do this on a daily basis? Because, yes, emergencies and disasters don't always happen. And sometimes that's what it takes to get somebody to actually put something in place. But then if we can really look at this and say, what can we do on a daily basis to really make this ingrained as a part of our program, and sometimes not even just in the BC program. You really need to start thinking outside the box as how can I be an advocate to help put these types of programs within other aspects of our business. So if we're talking daily communication, if we've got, some of these smaller, not necessarily disastrous or crisis outages, but if we've got daily smaller outages, think about the money and the time that could be saved by utilizing these types of tools. And we have clients that literally every second that there's any type of downtime, it's $2,400 a second, $144,000 a minute. So that's the simple way to quantify things. And then the other aspect is, okay, what other daily type things could we be utilizing around the organization to help keep staff and employees accountable and safe, including their families. So what are those daily things that are occurring around our organization, especially if you're a multinational or you've got multiple locations around the world, what could potentially be happening from a daily weather situation, civil unrest, those types of things. So how can we utilize those on a daily basis, on a smaller basis, versus just always looking at it from a pressure standpoint?
Hey, great, absolutely great points there. And David, if we could have your input, that would be great.
I just had an idea that it's a slightly different take, but rather than looking at the whole program and saying what is the value and trying to demonstrate that, I found that I've more often found small pockets of value around the organization. So, for example, if I'm looking at a whole supply chain, it might be that with the commercial guys or the distribution, there's a specific value to them, and they're kind of like a one client of me, the business continuity practitioner, and they're getting value out of the process, and quite often it's in the analysis. So that understanding of what their critical processes are and what we're doing with them and how it fits with the larger picture, because those little pockets of value will tend to aggregate up. And by the end of a program, or when we're actually into the implementation and we're rolling, those little pockets of value add up to something. But I would just say that I haven't had great success in trying to articulate value or return on investment across a whole program right on day one.
That's interesting that you bring up that point about day one there, David. I think that's a very good point to note when you're thinking about your program and your strategy. Before we move on, would anybody like to make any more comments on that particular topic?
Let me just chime in on that. I certainly agree that I think that a program is comprised of lots of small pockets. And when you look at it, it's not an overall program per se, but there's all of the different ways that we contribute as business continuity professionals. And many of it is in these little tiny spaces within the organization. And I think when you're trying to build your value story, you need to actually look at it not only from the broad program, but also certainly in all of those ways that we contribute. And when you start to make a list of them, there's actually quite a few.